Alright, today we are looking at the first appearance of Bengal, a character who subsequently appeared in a bunch of New Warriors books. This is Daredevil 258. It is a fill-in issue written by Fabian Nicieza with art by Ron Lee. That is Stanley Lee's little brother. Stanley Lee had about a dozen little Asian brothers, apparently. This issue is maybe elevated by the fact that Fabian Nicieza brings Bengal back a few times. And so this feels a bit more consequential than your standard fill-in story. This comic is giving me flashbacks to Vietnam. This is the backstory for our new character, Bengal. He was a Vietnamese boy who saw his village massacred by them Yankee Doodles. And we are learning this through the nightmares of Willie Lincoln, one of the soldier boys who was part of that unit. Now, Willie Lincoln is actually an odd character. He comes from odd Daredevils. He first appeared in Daredevil 47. Stanley Lee wrote it. He was a blind man. Willie Lincoln, not Stanley Lee. Although to look at some of Stanley Lee's scripts, maybe he was blind too. Willie Lincoln was a blind man, a Vietnam veteran, who went to Daredevil for legal help or something. I didn't quite remember. It was ages ago and I read it. Daredevil did help him though. Helped him take down the mob or whatever he wanted to do. But after that, Willie Lincoln surprisingly kept making appearances. He became somewhat of a supporting character, and I like that. I think it is important to let Daredevil have some relief, and it lets him feel less alone. There is another blind man out there. There is someone who can relate to him, and they can support each other a bit. They can share tips, like blind tips. You know, stuff like how to tell the difference between the bottle of shampoo and the bottle of bleach. They are very different shaped bottles. It is very easy to tell from shape alone that it is bleach and probably not Johnson's baby shampoo. But yeah, Willie Lincoln, he appeared every now and again. He was in that story I like with the introduction of Mac and Cheese Smith. He walks in and saves Daredevil from him. I think he teamed up with Froggy when Froggy was trying to become district attorney or mayor or something like that. Really, it is fucking ages ago. I read most of these. 12 to 13 years ago. New Warriors link though. Willie Lincoln was attacked by Turbo. The first Turbo. Although it's a pretty tenuous link because this Turbo was unrelated, but Torpedo from the New Warriors uses the second and third Turbo's armour. What we have here is Bagel, now a grown man. He is ganning around and executing the soldier boys who were involved with the village attack. And Bagel is a cool character. Neat, simple design, basic story but serviceable. He's a very skilled and efficient fighter. You'll see some really spectacular fisticuffs later in this issue. Willie Lincoln again turns to his friend Daredevil for help because he has been plagued by these flashbacks to the Nam, and his hard squad mates are dying. Willie Lincoln actually hadn't appeared in almost 20 years before this issue, so it's a surprising comeback here. He doesn't ever appear again after this, and I didn't quite understand why this isn't a character that we do see from time to time. No good reason, really. We get some more detail on the massacre from Bagel's point of view. We will come back to this sequence a third time in a few pages. But I think another thing about Bagel is, in this issue at least, he is very quiet. Not entirely silent. He does say stuff, but he doesn't say much, adding to the mystique. We get our first showdown with Daredevil. Bagel has come to execute Willie Lincoln, and Daredevil is protecting him. So here is our first helping of them fighting. Daredevil doesn't know what Bagel actually wants Willie Lincoln for. So after this short sparring session, Daredevil asks what is going on and why Bagel wants him so badly. So then we find out everything now. And one thing I hate is that the pilot who picks the platoon up is Roddy Rhodes. Don't like. Too coincidental. Far too coincidental. What is this? A Christopher Clairvoyant comic? It also lumbers Roddy Rhodes with being an accomplice to this atrocity, really. You see, the little boy, the one survivor from this village, he hung onto the helicopter, and the nasty commanding officer kicked him off to fall to his death. But he didn't fall to his death. He grew up to be Bagel. And something else that rubs me the wrong way is that bastard who kicked him off the helicopter doesn't get his comeuppance. He gets forgiven. And that brings us to talking about Bagel's appearances after this. Fabian Nicieza brings him back in New Warriors, where Bagel has tracked down the guy who kicked him off the helicopter, and he is a Catholic priest now. I've heard of Catholic priests abusing children before, but kicking them off helicopters is a different kind of child abuse. Oh. What happens is Knife Splasher winds up defending that guy because Knife Splasher doesn't really know about what happened. They fight. Good pairing, I suppose. And Knife Splasher tries to stab Bagel with his skateboard. You cannot make this stuff up. Punisher gets involved, I'm surprised they didn't retcon him into being part of that platoon. And then this is not earned. The guy who was too horrific to be resolved of wrongdoing like this, while we see Bagel murders people whose only crime was proximity to this person, Bagel forgives him. Bagel is in some other New Warrior stories after that. We saw one in the Omnibus. His most substantial appearances, though, come many years later in Avengers, The Initiation, where he is among the many heroes and many New Warriors characters who star in that series. Arguably, something of a breakout star. We also learn he has gotten married and he has a kid. And yeah, definitely one of the characters that I think stood out the most in that series. You get to see a lot of them in that series. He is a very skilled operative and he's placed on a Black Ops team with Constrictor Man and Thyroid Mary and Taskman and Pervert Ant-Man. We also get the only reference at any point to his feelings towards Rhodey Rhodes. Surprisingly, Fabian Nicieza never actually closed that loop. He never had Bagel fight War Machine or out like that. Probably could have told a story like that in The Initiation, but that book was juggling about 50 characters, so giving an issue over to Bagel's backstory that most people hadn't read is asking for a bit too much. So now we have our big battle. In one corner, Daredevil, and in the other corner, Bagel. Bagel versus Daredevil. And it's here where these bits are well done. And you have got to appreciate Ron Lee's art in these parts. Perfectly executed action. Great fighting. And we never actually got to see Ron Lee do that much in terms of fighting like this. Hand-to-hand combat. He was always doing art for stuff like Silver Surfman. And here we get a good look at how adept he was at doing regular fighting. Daredevil, he eventually wins the fight and he brings Bagel to Willie Lincoln. And the ending is very awkward because Fabian Nicieza didn't really have plans to use this character again, it seems. And this is written as if Bagel kills himself in shame after seeing how regretful and haunted by the experience Willie Lincoln was. Bagel jumps out of a window to his death. Then he shows up fine a few years later, and they don't bother mentioning that part of his first appearance. I recommend this. I do think the story itself is very, very basic, and I am not entirely satisfied or impressed by that part of it. But seeing it as the first appearance of a character that does turn out to have a bit more use afterwards, that definitely makes it stand out more. The art by Ron Lee as well, especially the fight scene, that is great stuff. So I think I recommend this, but maybe go in knowing it's not a big 10 out of 10. It's a 7 thumbs up.